What is up guys, Novum here, and recently we got some more Final Fantasy 15 information come up at PAX. Tabata came out and had two presentations full of new info. Now before I get into it, there are a few things I'd like to get out of the way. Starting off, episode 5 of Brotherhood will be released around TGS later this month. This will be the final episode of the anime besides the blooper episode that comes with the Ultimate Collector's Edition. However, Akio Ofuji is the anime's producer, and he mentioned that if the fans demand more Final Fantasy 15 anime, they will make more in the future. To anyone who may have forgotten, Justice Monsters 5 has actually been released a few days ago, so you can go ahead and download that off your iTunes or Play Store. It's an okay minigame to have on your phone while we wait for Final Fantasy 15 to release. Also recently, Tabata had an interview with DualShocker stating that Final Fantasy 15 is going through even more optimizations. The frames per second won't be an issue come by launch, and it also seems they heard the complaints about the car not controlling well, and so the dev team fixed up the driving to be a lot more freeing. And finally, during the second half of the game, where we heard the story would have a linear progression, Tabata came out to say it's more towards the end of the game and that in the menu we can choose to go back to the open world portion of the game, so worry no more about your in-game freedom. Alright, getting into the new PAX footage. From the start they showed off how they improved the driving. It's a lot less stiff from previous complaints. Something to note about the U-turn though is that it might be a button that you can press that makes the car do a full spin around, as you can see it here. They then turned on the car radio and Afrojack's E3 song played. It's actually called Braver. For anyone that doesn't know, that is Cloud's first limit break in Final Fantasy VII. Soon after that, they went on to an off-road path that led to an optional side dungeon called the Beluve Mines. On the way to the dungeon, Juan Hosmer started to show off how you could speed up the car and then press the brake button, and then the characters would jerk like you would in real life without a seatbelt. It was kind of funny and it had a very nice detail to it. At the entrance of the dungeon, Juan Hosmer took a look at the gear he had available to him. We saw a new weapon named the Rune Saber. It states that it was made with a special ore that increases stats. I'm not exactly sure if this was a crafted blade though. The dungeon sported an elevator that had 4 floors. Seeing that instantly made me hope that this game had a dungeon or tower with like 100 floors, like older JRPGs. The devs also said that the mines were crafted after their own personal inspection of mines in real life. It also seems this game has hazardous environments that can cause damage to the player. The minecarts were active in the mineshaft and were moving on rails. They dealt damage and knocked back Noctis. It was very cool to see. Dungeons have split pathways as well, though I personally hope in later game dungeons they don't give us a map with the full layout like we have here and leave the mystery of exploration to us. Juan Hosmer stated that he had a fire-enhanced greatsword, and it seemed that every slash gave out an extra fire animation on hit, so it's cool to see that we can imbue elemental damage on our weapons. There were also item drops within the dungeon like an elixir, a gold ore, and an accessory. The dungeon also seemed to have small events that happened within, like a goblin shutting the door on the player, as well as a goblin that pushed the cart onto the player as a surprise when the minecart wasn't even moving. We got a better look at magic crafting this time around, and now we know we can actually mix the elemental spells together. In the gameplay, they show that mixing fire and lightning with a beetle shell made Quadcast Fyra Thundara, which when used bursts out a random mix of Fyra and Thundara 4 times. We also saw spells that you can create such as Quintcast Fyra Thundara, which casts spells 5 times, as well as Stopcast Fyra that stops enemies. Also taking a quick glance at the Royal Arm section, while Juan was scrolling through, you could see the bow of the Clever Royal Arm, meaning that bows are confirmed in. I can already imagine the warp strike ability on the bow is like an arrow rain from above or something. Now this part here I thought was creative as well. You are shown an ominous mine rail and a samurai walks towards you, then it vanishes and a goblin in a minecart knocks you back, and then the samurai reappears, knocking the player down. It was just a cool scenario that messes with the player's head. Also in this small link attack, you can see Noctis jumps on Gladiolus' sword and gets launched to drop down with a Dragoon jump as a finisher. Later they used Fyra Thundara again, but on a metal surface, and it conducted onto the metal, creating a long-lasting damage field of electricity. The characters even had an electrifying animation, and your allies will faint. Eventually the boss was shown and he was level 38. It turns out to be the samurai from earlier. It's not impossible to beat this, seeing that this is an action game, but I'm sure it's very hard as the player was only level 17. So Juan basically died, but there was a screen that popped up and it seemed to be saying that if you hit 0 HP, you can use a recovery item to revive yourself. Not sure how exactly that works, if it means you can use a Phoenix Down or just the potion, but we'll see. They also showed some chocobo racing as well, but there wasn't much new here to be seen though. After the chocobo racing segment, they had shown a bit of the Need Niflheim base infiltration as well. First up, we saw the MAX mech fight, and it had weak points that would open up around its body that you could warp strike and destroy. They killed the mech, and that gave them a laser sensor, which is probably a valuable crafting material. After that, they set a bomb to detonate and were ready to leave the base and reunite with Iris. But then, surprise, Aranea the Dragoon pops out and initiates the first humanoid boss fight we have seen for 15. I've honestly been curious for a while now on how these would play out, so I'm gonna get to dissecting this boss fight now.
Hey, pretty boy.
これはね、敵として登場するアラネアっていうキャラクター。
Aranea steps in for the first strike on Noctis, and then... Wait. What? Unfortunately, the broadcast got cut because of a wire or something. Anyways, after a few minutes they got it back online and resumed the boss fight, and as you can see, Noctis parries her Dragoon dive and dunks her head onto the ground. What a guy! After that, the fight only went on for a few more seconds till they ended the presentation, cutting the fight short after that technical error, and we never got to see Aranea's aerial pole dancing moves. What a bummer. Still, with the few seconds that we did get, I took a closer look at the few moments where Noctis tried to attack her on the ground, and it seemed that she kinda dodged everything he did at this one point, just dancing through the hits. It was really weird, and it would only seem like you could hit her while she was hitting one of your allies. Not really sure how these are gonna play out. We're gonna have to wait till the final game, you know? After the presentation was over, later on that day they showed off even more footage about the skill tree and the weapons, and oh boy, do I have a lot to talk about here. Juan Hosmer mentioned that you can get AP by leveling up, talking to NPCs and choosing the right dialogues, as well as completing certain challenges. You don't need to level up to get all these skills, however, meaning a level 1 run can be possible. So I'm just going to describe all the skills we could get a look at when Juan Hosmer was showing them off. So we've seen some of these skills before. We saw Master at Arms, Accessory Slots, Libra, and Phase. However, what we didn't see was Air Step, which apparently allows you to flip once in the air and it costs MP. Air Slip, which is an aerial dodge, so I guess I was right about that like I said in my last analysis video. Death Drop, which is an active skill that allows you to automatically warp towards the enemy while attacking midair and strike downwards. Air Dance, which allows you to air step after attacks without being limited to how many times you can flip, but it still costs MP. Rapid Regen, which allows for faster HP and MP recovery while in cover. Blink, which allows you to dodge enemy attacks without using MP by pressing the defend button right before an enemy attacks you. Libra Pinpoint, which boosts damage on scanned enemy appendages. Enhanced Libra, which allows you to scan stronger enemy types like the demons. It also seems like you need to enable Polearm Link Strikes and Greatsword Link Strikes by unlocking their nodes. Upcharger, which raises the charging limit on charged attacks like the Greatsword, and a very interesting skill called Warp Decoy. Leave a hologram to divert enemies after a warp point. Sounds like Noctis is getting some tricky stealth-like abilities. That was the last skill we saw for Noctis. Allies also get skills and passives you can unlock, like Shields for Gladio or Ignis with Analyze, which is also basically Libra. Now for the weapons. It only seems like some weapons are upgradable, and thankfully, the Engine Sword is. So it seems we could carry that into the endgame. Then, Juan went on to showing the Royal Arms and how they are unique and use up MP. It seems like the axe broke some part of the Gorilla's defense with its Warp Strike animation. I wish they actually showed what the combo animations looked like for the axe, but oh well. Tabata had said that the skill tree is still in works for the final version of the game to make it more clear on how we are building our characters. Anyways, we have more events coming up this month, and that about wraps up my PAX analysis video. Thank you for watching.